Awesome.
Okay, so go ahead and say your name. I'll say my name, and we'll get going.
Okay, Melissa Manwaring.
And Lisa Ball. And we are discussing the simulated family therapy session. Some of the things that we need to do are take turns talking about the points you identified, both the overt references and the more subtle ones. Note the trends of your findings as a group. Did everyone identify the same points, or were there points that not everyone caught? Talk about your observations. Was anyone surprised by the findings or observations? Discuss and record how a treatment professional or a paraprofessional might prepare to capitalize on such opportunities to introduce or reinforce the types of resiliency factors from Walsh's article. So let me get back to where I have you. Okay. I lost my video for a second. Okay. So when we watched the family therapy session, I was really curious to know if this was a real session, and it seemed to be. I don't know if I would let my family's therapy session be broadcast or used, but it was really interesting to watch.
Yep. I was really curious too because I felt like the parents were really young.
They did. They did.
Like, just pretend, but then I saw their rings and everything, and I thought, you know what, I think this is for real. But
yeah, and their stories just were too real.
Yeah.
And the daughter, I couldn't tell. Like, he couldn't tell how old she was either. She seemed a little older until she started talking. So.
Yep. Yeah.
But when we read through chapter 6, some of the things that I noticed right away is that he pretty much all the way through his therapy session continued the same strategies that they mentioned in this entire chapter.
Yeah.
Did you notice? And it says right away that he assesses strengths and vulnerabilities on multiple system dimensions. The first thing that caught my attention, and it was kind of like, I don't know, I had the reaction that, oh, he's just, doing the typical therapist thing, trying to get to know everybody. But it actually is a good idea to help them warm up. I noticed how nervous they looked when they came in. And the mom even mentioned at the end that they were really nervous when they came in. So he did the kind of the break the ice thing. So I just highlighted a bunch of stuff through the article if you want me to just kind of go over it, and if you have anything to mention, you can tell me if those things, did you mark yours or highlight yours?
I just kept mine online, but I just made a Word document of things that I noticed.
Oh, good. Okay. So we can correlate, and I'll go through with what I highlighted, and then you tell me if you found the same thing, because that's kind of what we're supposed to be doing, I guess.
Okay.
On the first section, I highlighted families most often come for help in crisis. Well, that was an obvious. The family came to him, and they saw their situation as a crisis. And that the therapist needs to generate optimism. I think he did that from the very beginning. I thought it was interesting too. Did you notice it looked like his office was in his home?
Yeah, definitely. Yep.
Yeah. I've actually known people who are therapists who had their offices at their home, and I thought that's really weird, but then it's more homey, so maybe not going to an office made them feel a little more comfortable.
Yeah.
Connectedness is one of the keywords that I found that he really did. He made a connection right away with each family member. He didn't just, he immediately started assessing. I am really bad about remembering names, but I noticed right away he repeated their names. And that's one of the skills that I learned, to remember people's names, especially since I teach school. I have to repeat the kids' names over and over again so I can remember.
Yeah.
It says they, in order to establish cohesion, they have open emotional sharing. He definitely did that. Collaborative problem solving. He took the family through some problem-solving issues. But I noticed it took a long time for him to get there. Did you notice that?
Mhm.
You know, like it took him a while to assess everyone's needs, and he got to know them really, really well before he started. I kept thinking to myself, okay, when's he going to get to the problem and how to solve it?
Yeah.
But I realized that it was essential for him to get to know the family and assess their needs first. Especially the son. I was really surprised. Having teenagers myself, I was really surprised that the son warmed up to him,
Mhm.
especially considering his age and, you know, the situation and the fact that he was the reason they were there.
Oh yeah, right at the beginning when they all just started blaming him, I kind of figured that he was just gonna shut down.
Right,
I
right,
didn't think he would open up at all.
right. I felt the same way, and I thought he did a really good job, even though he was pretty repetitive about saying, "Oh, I know this sounds kind of dumb," or "This is dorky," but
Yeah.
that's kind of like when I teach, I try to find some common ground with my kids that will help them to feel more comfortable with me. So a lot of times, I mean, I teach 8-year-olds, so I have to use 8-year-old lingo, you know,
Yeah.
and just simply putting your fist out for them to do the fist bump is like so um, opening to them. You know, it's like it warms them up and it helps them to realize that you're real. So I guess he was trying to be real
To be real.
um, by doing that. And I just kept going, okay, stop saying this sounds dorky or this sounds dumb. But he probably wanted to connect with the teenagers, and that was a good way to do that. Um, so it talked about successful problem solving strategies, draw out and strengthen these key processes for resilience. Talked about how resilience comes through good coping strategies. I thought that the family probably thought their situation was way worse than it really was. So, somewhere I was reading later in the chapter where he helped them to realize that they're normal and that the situation with the son is definitely fixable, which is good. That gave them some security.
Yeah.
So, do you have anything early on your list that I missed?
I mean, I just like I didn't know how in depth the that she wanted us to be, and
Yeah,
so
me
like
either.
I have like a bunch of different examples and things that like all like the bolded words, you know.
Hmm.
You did a lot. I mean, you said most of it. I think a lot of things. I also let's see, looking at my list. He, I think you kind of mentioned it. He's like building empathetic connections between family members. I was really impressed, just like you kind of talked about. I think something that really hit me was when he asked the kids if about the Yellowstone animal, like which is the most vicious, and he said it was the mother bear because like she would do anything to protect her cubs, and so it's like a mom like doing anything to protect her children. Like he really empathized with the mother, but then he like switched and empathized with Jimmy, saying like, yeah, you're just out of school and you're in a new spot and it's kind of scary. And so I was very impressed how well he did that.
Hmm. I thought
Um,
his language was good too, like where he'd
yeah,
say, "Yeah, I get it," you know, and that really helps Jimmy to understand that, you know, he really understands him, even if nobody else does.
no one else
So,
did.
like he's in his corner, but at the same time, he's in everyone's corner. So
Yeah,
that was really good because he established that connection with each person individually.
definitely. I I've never really like since like this is like the first therapy session I've ever seen, and so it's just really interesting to like see like how he did that, and
Hmm.
let's see which one was it called? It was like drawing out hidden resources and lost competence, and like he did that right from the beginning when he said like what did you guys like do together as a family that's fun.
Right, right.
They said, oh, we used to like to go camping before this happened, and it kind of like brought those things back. And I thought, wow, like I would have never thought just asking that question would really help a lot.
Well, and it resounded throughout the therapy session. It was kind of the underlying theme. You guys like to go camping together. Let's get you back to that family that goes camping together.
Yeah,
And he didn't even like come straight out and say, go camping, you know, go this weekend or anything. But he wanted them to get back to where they were, especially like the brother and the sister. He had the sister say, okay, what is going on with your brother? What do you feel? And, you know, how do you feel about him? And then he turned to the brother, well, how do you feel about the way she's treating you, and he kind of brought them back to their original relationship, which I thought was really good because he made them see why they love each other and why they were concerned about each other. So.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think like that goes like with clarifying ambiguity because he got everyone's opinion out in the open. I mean, right from the beginning, he just asked like, "What was the problem?" and he had every person say what the problem was. And
Right.
I think just like you could almost like see like when Jimmy said like, "Well, I just feel like my family doesn't care because they don't trust me. All they do is yell at me," like that's like completely opposite when the mother was just absolutely worried about her son and didn't know how to react. And so
Right.
I think it helped everyone to hear each other's point of view, and I thought he did
Right.
that really well with that.
Yeah, I think his analogy, like you said, of the mother bear was a really good way to start out because it made the kids stop and think without them even realizing it that the mom cares,
Yeah.
and to establish that right away. And um, I was looking at the table that says key processes in family resilience. There's a lot of, it kind of sums it up there. Um, like making meaning of adversity. It says family life cycle orientation, normalizing, contextualizing adversity and distress. He did make them feel like they were normal, a normal family.
Yeah.
I thought too, and coming from a family that moved a lot, it was important that he established that they had just moved and how hard it is to move.
Hmm.
And I immediately went to, okay, I see totally why Jimmy went this way because I moved every year of my life until middle school.
Oh,
And yeah, and it's really hard because you almost don't want to make friends and you don't want to make good friends because you know you're going to have to leave them. So maybe he, in some deep seated way, maybe he inadvertently made friends with the wrong kind because he figured he might move again or he didn't want to get too close to his friends. Maybe it was hard for him to move. Especially, it sounds like he moved close to his senior year. Like I moved my senior year again later on, and I remember that being really hard on me, and I didn't want to get close to anybody. So I started empathizing with him right away
yeah.
and realized that, he's just trying to, it's his coping strategy. It's kind of like, finding friends that he knows he won't have a problem leaving if he has to move again. So I just kind of felt like he might have had issues with that since
Yeah.
I did.
And I think like the therapist did a really good job. I feel because like his sister just went straight out and attacked him on it and said she knows these guys aren't good guys, which like she would be the one to know. She's the one that's surrounded by them and in that atmosphere. But I think the therapist did a really good job at like at the end he said, well, I can't force Jimmy to come
Right.
home on curfew on time. He's like, but I can, bring out conversation, communication between you guys so you understand each other's point of view. And I don't know. I felt like the more we listened to the conversation, it seemed like the more Jimmy did it to stay away from his family, almost out of spite because they just wouldn't trust him, and
Right.
he just did it more. And so it's just like a circle that never would never end.
Yeah. And I thought it was really good how he was able to bring Jimmy around, even though he said you don't have to say anything. He brought him around to actually admitting that he had not done anything that his sister was worried about. That must have been a huge relief to the mom. I know if I were the mom, I would be like, oh, and hope that he was telling the truth. But he seemed like he was. He seemed like he had a good head on his shoulders. He just, he wasn't going to tell his friends not to do it. He just decided not to do it on his own. So that was, I think, too, the second thing on the relief system or the belief systems is positive outlook.
Hmm.
He had a positive outlook on everything he discussed with them,
Yep.
and flexibility, the capacity to change. He was able to change from one person to the other, and establish that connectedness, the mutual support and collaboration he was able to establish for them. And he had a respect for each person's needs. That's
Yep.
on the list. He encouraged cooperative parenting. I kind of feel like in that situation, the parents needed the most help because it sounded like they were on two different pages, and that's hard. You
That is
know, I know when my husband and I are not in the same wavelength, we definitely clash, and it affects the kids, and then we get nowhere. In fact, the kids kind of start taking sides.
Yeah,
So it's better to make sure that the parents establish that connectivity.
definitely. And even like how he like had them move around during the session and like having, like I noticed that right away that the husband and wife weren't sitting by each other.
Right.
And like later
Right.
on when he moved them, like that made complete sense to me because at that point he's like, you guys need to be connected in this because your kids are following your example. And
Right.
I liked how he just had them, I had him ask her on a date at the end. Like I think that like there's more to that than they think. You know what I mean? Like bringing that connection back with them can really help bring the connection back with the family, I think.
Yeah, yeah, very true. It was interesting too. Body language. I took a class once that talked quite a bit about body language and how to read body language, and those two obviously were distant from each other, and the little girl sat right in the middle automatically. She just like plopped herself right in the middle. It sounds to me like she's probably like my daughter is with my son. She tells him what for, and and she's younger, but she will tell him you should be doing this and you should be doing that. And this girl obviously felt like there was a need there for her to be the mother. And he even mentioned, Jimmy even mentioned later, it's like I have two mothers. That was an interesting transpiration or whatever you want to call it.
No, yeah, definitely. Um,
Um, yeah, and then it says open emotional expression. Do you
mhm.
have that on your list as well?
Wait, which one? Sorry.
Open emotional expression, where he like asked him, "How do you feel about that?"
Yep, yep. I had
Yeah,
that.
which
Uh,
is kind of a classic therapist question, but the way he asked was not classic. It wasn't like, "Oh, he really doesn't care how I feel."
yeah, definitely. I had one I thought was really important was crediting positive intentions.
Hmm.
Uh, I feel like that was great because never there was just no negativity in what he said, like, oh, that's stupid, or like I said with the mother bear thing, and then like the sister, like after she got done just saying all these, like why she's mad at her brother and all these things, he said, well, like I said, why, he asked her, why do you do that? Like, why are you so concerned? He's like, well, because I love him, and I feel like that's a really, and he like stuck with that, like he kept saying like, he didn't ever say that what they were doing, like he never told the mother that her yelling at her son was okay, but he did
Right,
point out that her intention was positive, even though she
right.
was like showing it in a negative way. And
Yeah. Yeah,
I
that's
think
a good point. I noticed that too, that he never berated anyone for their behavior.
yeah.
He told them, "I get it. I see why you feel this way,"
Yep.
and he made them understand that the things that they were doing were not effective, but that there's a better way. And I think
Mhm.
that was the important thing that they could have taken away from that, is that there is a fix for this. It may not be an immediate fix. Because I was waiting at the end for him to say, this is what I would have done, but I'm not a therapist. But I was waiting for him to say, hey, Dad, why don't you take him to the skate park and let him show you a few moves and let him, skate with him or something like that. And then I started thinking about it and I thought, well, maybe he doesn't feel like Jimmy's ready to open that part of his world to his dad.
Mhm.
So, I mean, because I know with my teenagers, there's a certain um, fine line that you don't cross. They're pretty good about opening up everything to me because I'm in Young Women's and my daughter's used to me being there, and I taught at the school where both my kids attended elementary school, so they're used to me being around. But there's a fine line also that I just don't cross. If they're going somewhere with their friends, I don't invite myself. My dad used to do that to me, and it drove me crazy. And so maybe that's why he didn't suggest that, because he's not quite ready to invite his dad to, explore that part of his life. And it would kind of almost be weird. So,
Definitely. I think like instead of doing that, like, because I thought that too. I was like, well, just have him go hang out with them. But he kind of did that in there when he's like, let's see what I put. Um, he was like encouraging like the future, like he's like, okay, well, why don't you guys get together and talk about, careers and everything, which is something that I thought was really positive because, Jimmy did say like that was a concern he had, and like that's like somewhere that they can find medium ground. You know what I mean? Like the father can give him advice, and the son probably really does need that advice at this time in his life, but it's not, like hitting anything, really serious. I don't know. I just felt like that was a good way to connect because I feel like when I was a senior in high school, I finally got close to my parents and I started talking about my future and what they did and everything. And that to me was when I became close to them because it was something that I really needed help with. But sometimes I was afraid to ask.
Hmm. Yeah, and some kids don't feel like their parents are successful. My parents had 8 kids, and we were poor all the time. Like they would rob Peter to pay Paul constantly because they had their own business, and they did furniture reupholstering. And I swore up and down I would never learn to sew because my mom spends her life sewing, and I just didn't want to have any part of that. So I didn't really look at my parents as failures. I just did not want to repeat what they were going through because they had a hard life, and they still do. And so I wanted better for my kids. I wanted better for myself. And so, maybe what did he work at, an oil company? The dad?
I think so. Is that what it was? I didn't know.
Yeah, I think
Like,
it was an oil company or some kind of place like that. But, the son probably thinks, okay, that's not a very lofty aspiration. That's probably not what he wants to do. And of course, he resorted to skating. I don't know how early he started skating, but, at that age, a lot of kids think that they're going to go on to become big and great, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's like I told my son, he has his own little DJ business, and he had all these people that he looked up to who were successful in their DJ businesses, and he had these dreams that, hey, this could be me someday. But now that he's closer to serving a mission and he just graduated from high school, he's set those aside and he's come to reality. And for a long time I thought, oh, I wonder if he's going to continue to dream, or if he's going to come back down to earth and realize, hey, there's better things for me. And he has. He's going to be putting in his mission papers really soon. So he's kind of redirected his focus. But I think this kid Jimmy just didn't have anything to focus on except skating.
Yeah.
So
I mean, do you guys get them? Do you get the impression that they were LDS or not? Like,
I don't know. I was trying to figure it out, but it didn't seem like they were.
Yeah.
They didn't have the. And if they were, he might have probably mentioned more church-related doctrine.
That's true.
I mean, I would imagine. I don't know. I don't know what the rules are and the ethics, but I'm sure that at one point, he probably wanted to say, because it sounds like they didn't have the gospel to hang on to, and it sounds like the family's kind of lost, and it's really unfortunate that they can't do missionary work, but therapy sessions are not about that. So
I know my husband's a PSR worker, and he's always like, I just want to introduce the gospel to these people. Like, that's all they need. And
yeah, I have the same problem with the parents and the families of the kids that I teach. I'm like, oh, if you guys only had what I have. And I really walk a fine line when I say I'll pray for you, because it's not a religious school at all. But I make sure that I know that they're religious before I say that, because I've had some really, really, really bad situations to have to deal with, like kids' parents dying, and, I had two years in a row, and then another one a little bit later. 2 of them, their dads died while they were in my class, and another one, her mom died the year before, and I've had to do a lot of grief counseling that I didn't know how to do, but I just prayed a lot, and I just kept telling them, I'm praying for you, and they're like, oh, good, thank you. So I think that in that situation he tiptoed around it. You could tell he kind of like got close and mentioned things about his family, but he probably couldn't go there, which was good. He maintained his professionalism. So I highlighted that it says clarify family members' understanding of the crisis event. I think it was important that he made sure they understood what was going on. And it says what they have been told by whom and what they believe deep down. He kind of got a little deeper. I was really actually shocked that Jimmy would open up to him as much as he did. That he seemed to, and it's almost like it was his cry for attention.
Yep.
And it sounds like, you know, I mean, he slammed his dad when he said, well, why should I be around when he's not around? So that was a pivotal point, I think, a turning point. Maybe for the dad. Hopefully the dad understood that he needs to give him more time. So I know that with my kids, they are older, so sometimes I have a tendency to say, like when I'm doing my homework, oh, they're fine. You know, I can go off and do my work and they won't miss me. But if I was gone somewhere, you know, if I'm at home, they go off and do their own thing. But if I am gone somewhere, then they get kind of a little unnerved about it, even as teenagers. So maybe that's one of the biggest issues for Jimmy is his dad not being home.
It's true, and I found that really interesting that he like brought that up, even though like, you know, his dad was not even that. I mean, he was worried, but not as worried as the mom and sister. And so I was really surprised when he like went to it, like when he kind of like attacked his dad in that way. I thought, wow, like, you know, like never really. The most he ever says he just doesn't like to be yelled at, and
right.
I don't know, I thought that was interesting. Like there's like that hidden, even though his dad really didn't have much to do with it, there was that hidden tension there that was causing a lot of the other tension.
Yeah, and you would think he would lash out at his mom, who yells at him all the time, because I totally relate to the mom, because I'm the bad guy at home. And my husband comes home, he's quiet, he's stoic, you know, and the kids completely respect him, and they do anything he wants, and he doesn't even have to do anything but look at them. And, you know, and then I'm the one over there going, rah, 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 you know, so I get her completely, and you get frustrated because you really don't know what to do other than just show your emotions. So that was interesting. Yeah, it sounds like probably the bigger problem. On the surface, it looked like it was the mom who yelled at him all the time, but deep down, to me, it looked like it was the dad not being there for him. So.
And even like how he got to that point, it's almost amazing, you know, like because you hear the superficial things right from the beginning, and then by the end, you just hear like it just expounded, like everyone's point of view is just expounded.
Right, and then all these deep-seated, this deep-seated animosity that they had. It's all coming from love, and I thought that was really neat that the therapist was able to bring it all around. Like, you know, it mentions I don't know where it is, but it mentions somewhere in the chapter that the best way, you know, to analyze the job that you're doing is to see how you're able to find their strengths in the midst of adversity, I think it says. It says, family resilience approach emphasizes the importance of finding strengths in the midst of adversity. And that's what he did. He focused on their strengths and, you know, helped them to realize their weaknesses were very small and minor.
Yeah.
And it says, too, to gain greater compassion for one another. And there was one really neat thing in there. It says building empathetic connections with and between family members. It said empathy is the key to a working alliance, and he had to help them have empathy for one another. And he had to have empathy with the family members. And it says therapists find it hard to be empathetic with a family member who has been neglectful or is abrasive. I imagine that would be the hardest thing, is if he found out that maybe Jimmy was using drugs or, you know, drinking, smoking, whatever, then it would be harder for him to be more empathetic with him, but he would still have to maintain that empathy.
Yeah. I think, like, the thing that was really obvious was the therapist, like, made... Do you hear that? Do you hear the... Oh, it's done? Okay.
Yeah, it was a little bit hollow, but you're better now.
Okay. But the therapist like made like a safe environment, you know, like I feel like at home I could just imagine, you know, Jimmy trying to talk, but then his mom's yelling, so he doesn't want to talk. I think like the safe environment, you know, and like you said, bringing out the strengths and not like saying like the weaknesses over and over again, but bringing out the positive really made a safe environment for Jimmy to be like, yeah, I'm okay to say what I want here, you know. And I thought, I can't remember, I'm trying to remember where that was in. It's kind of like under the flexible service delivery, like it talked a lot about, like right away he planned on he made himself open to them and like willing to help them. And I feel like that's a huge thing. So, like as a counselor, like you're going to ask for advice, and like we said, like, they were really nervous about it, but he made it so it was like, no, like we're gonna make these goals, and then already next week we're gonna come and talk again. Like he wasn't gonna leave them like delayed for a long time, and I think that probably caused, like helped the family feel a lot more secure about the situation, and I think just making that safe environment really helped everyone.
Yeah, and the fact that he didn't offer a quick fix, like, a lot of people would want to prove that they're a good therapist by saying, okay, so this is what you need to do. And he didn't do that. He did have them facilitate. There's some place in the chapter, and I can't remember exactly where it talked about having them role play or something to that effect, where having them work it out through their own words, and just kind of prodding them along so that they knew how to do this. There was another part in the Empathetic Connections that says, the confusion of the father, whose own father wasn't there for him. We can be empathetic with the challenge of advancing good parenting without a good model. So the father clearly did not have good parent models, so he probably didn't know what to do. The mother probably had strict parents, and so she figured that getting on his case was good. The father didn't have parents who cared, so he probably didn't know what.
You're breaking out really bad.
Can you hear me now?
Is
that better?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. All right. So basically my point was that the father didn't know what to do because he didn't have good role models. So.
Definitely.
Am I still breaking up?
Nope, you're fine.
Okay. There were some questions, too, that I ran across that he asked that it said, making meaning of crisis experiences. Said, be careful not to make assumptions based on your own experience or concerns, because I think that would be easy to do, is just say, oh, yeah, I remember when my kids did this, and, because he started out there, but then he just kind of turned it around and he said, what stood out for you? That was one of the questions that you should ask. Mm-hmm. And he kept asking, he didn't say, how do you feel about that? He would say, I don't remember exactly what he would say, but he was really good about coaching them to speak their minds and to say what they were feeling at the time.
Yeah. I think he used to, correct me if I'm wrong, but
yeah.
I think, and he would wait for them, I don't know.
Yeah,
he did very well to make sure that he was on the same page and not everyone else was. I think he also did it so he could point out points so the other family could see while he was talking with someone directly.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that
was he was really good at saying, okay, so let me see if I have this straight, and then telling them, okay, so you feel like this and this, and you wish this, and he would give them the option to correct him if he didn't get it correct, but he pretty much nailed it each time.
Yeah.
So, trying to move along here, but I have so many things highlighted, it's really hard to narrow it down. So you were probably smart for doing a,
There's still a ton. I have 2 pages worth. So.
Do you?
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm just going to touch on the things that I thought were most insightful.
Okay.
Let's see. Because it keeps repeating pretty much resiliency, coping strategies, problem solving. Yeah. It says crediting positive intentions. He was really good about letting each person know that he understands that they had positive intentions and not negative ones. Mm-hmm. And praising efforts and achievements. He kind of did that from the beginning with Jimmy especially. Yep. I noticed he spent the most time with him talking about the skateboarding, and he didn't pretend like he knew all about skateboarding like some people would do. he was like, I know really nothing about it, but that's really cool, you know. And he kind of validated Jimmy's interest. I thought that was interesting. Um, Drawing out hidden resources and lost competence. I thought it was interesting too that they said a lot of families feel like there's no hope and that they've lost everything and that they really have no value. And each person can feel that way as well. I know that's happened in my family. It happens with me where like I just think, oh, I'm the worst mother. You know, that actually recently happened when I signed my daughter up for high school and she didn't get into one of her electives because I didn't get her signed up in time. So I took that on the cuff. I felt so bad and so guilty about it. And I feel like I'm the worst mother because I didn't get her in earlier, but I had a job and I couldn't get over there before school was out. So yeah, but we're going to work on it. I told her, we'll work on it. I'll do my best. If I have to tap dance on the counselor's desk, I'll do it. So, oh, and then it talks about adopting a positive, future-oriented focus. So it says approaching clients about their hopes and dreams encourages them to imagine a more satisfying future and seek to achieve it. Families should be encouraged to consider and prepare together for such later life challenges as retirement, transitional living arrangements, and end-of-life decisions. That didn't really apply to this family, but it probably eventually would. Yeah. And he's probably trying that with Jimmy and saying, okay, so what are your hopes and dreams for the future? It can't just be skating. And obviously this kid has dreams and hopes. He just didn't know how to direct himself. And it's almost kind of like, too, his parents were pulling away at the same time he was pulling away because they didn't know what to do. So I just feel like you said, if they had had the gospel, they could have sat down with him. You know, we recently did the same with our son. We sat him down and we said, okay, so you're going to be graduating soon. And my husband pulled out some scriptures and some doctrine from some of the apostles, read it to him. You know, he's given him Father's blessings and just things that help so much. And if nothing else, it helps our son to know that we care about him and that we care about his future.
Definitely. I am from a family who they're non-LDS, and so it's been like an up and down. I mean, like I know the whole fighting situation. I can relate to that very well. You know, like I'm married now and in my own family, and my family, my parents just split. Right now, they're probably getting a divorce, and it's just like being with my husband right now and having the priesthood in my family and having the opportunity to talk about the gospel and to talk about what we can fix like that. You can just see the difference, and it's like really hard. I just want to like yell at my family and be like, "You can fix this. I know you can." Like I'm learning about it in all my classes, but you know, like it's hard. Like, and I think that like also something about therapists show, you know, like I kind of mentioned earlier, like he didn't say like, you know, he could just fix it right there. Like he can't fix what Jimmy's doing or what Mom's doing, but like, you know, the family could work on it together. You know, like he put the working, you know, like on them. Like he put the
he set the pace for them and put them on the path, but let them do it themselves. Yeah,
exactly. Which helped longer than him just trying to do it.
Right. I totally agree. I think we have a tendency when people come to me about their kids' problems at work, they'll say, okay, what can I do? My daughter's not interested in reading, you know, and of course I feel like I should have the quick fix, and I feel like I should be able to give them this like vast amount of knowledge that I have, and unfortunately I tell them you have to figure out what works for your kid. You know, you have to figure out what their little quirks are and their niches are, and you have to kind of build on that. And I've even gone so far as to recommend to parents that they let their kids read the comics in the newspaper, you know, if they're not interested in reading. And I gave one kid a copy of Calvin and Hobbes. And, you know, I said, if nothing else, my daughter loved reading these, you know, and she really wasn't a real avid reader until about second grade, and she started reading Calvin and Hobbes like crazy, and she just loved and appreciated the humor in that cartoon. And I realized, you know, it's not that she has no interest in reading, it's just that she doesn't want to read what somebody tells her to read. So it's really interesting that, you know, he told them, go and figure out what works for you, instead of, okay, this is what you should do, point A, B, C, D, you know. That was important. And then it says, in helping a family move forward, it's important to make connections between the past, present, and future so that family members can understand current distress and integrate their experiences. And it says refocusing from complaints to aims. So instead of getting caught up in the vicious cycle of complaining about each other and the negativity, focusing on each other's deficiencies, constantly finding fault, we should get rid of the cycles of blame and open them up to having more positive experiences with one another and saying more positive things. So that was pretty much the end of what I had. So I kind of skipped through a little bit, but I think it was really important that all the way through this he was following. It was like textbook, you know.
Yeah. And I feel like even all the points over correlated, you know, like being, you know, like pointing out strengthening, and then, you know, being optimistic and bringing out hope. I thought, like, as I was like trying to point things out, I'm like, well, I just said that about that concept, you know, like they really do all just correlate, and like a lot of them are alike, but like just like the specific little differences make a huge difference in the overall picture.
You know what I also kind of imagined when they were sitting there? It was almost as if they were in a bishop's office, you know? And I correlated it to that experience, because when you have something that you need to discuss with the bishop will kind of let you figure out what's wrong and just kind of ask key questions. I mean, if he's a good bishop, he'll ask key questions, and he'll kind of like lead you down the path and then say, okay, it's like teaching your kid to ride a bike. You hold on to the seat and you run alongside them so that they think you're still holding onto the seat, but they're actually doing it themselves. And it's really kind of incredible to them when they realize, hey, I'm riding the bike all by myself, and then they realize they can do it. And then you can back off and you don't even have to run beside them. But that's what I kept thinking about. I kept thinking about how, you know, he was almost doing the same thing that we do in the gospel. You know, he was following along, and all of these practices and principles and guidelines that are outlined in chapter 6, they could be applied to gospel principles as well. So that was the biggest thing that I got from it, was, you know, like my big epiphany was, this is very similar to how a bishop would counsel a family. So, yeah.
Definitely.
Is there anything else on your list that you wanted to
No, but I'm pretty much like you. I just followed along with what you said, and that's
okay, good. Then it sounds like we kind of correlated the same.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we said, like almost every point was touched.
Right.
Or another. So.
Yeah, we talked about the points. We noted the trends.
Yep.
Our observations. We talked about what we were surprised by the findings of the observations. Yep. How a treatment professional and paraprofessional might prepare to capitalize on the opportunities. I think we covered it all.
I think so. Yeah. So. We're almost right on time too. So.
Yeah, and if you want, we can just do the summary. You can type it up and email it to me if you want, so that way you don't have to be under pressure right now to put it together.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, I was gonna say I was gonna try during it, and it was just too hard because.
No, yeah, I've tried that before too, and I hate those ones where in my other class we have to connect, and then someone has to summarize in 2 minutes at the end.
Yeah.
And it's like such pressure, and you're like, oh no, I forgot what I was gonna say. Even if you take notes, you can't formulate it all into a good summary. So that's fine if you don't mind doing that.
I can do that. So she said, like, it doesn't have to be. I don't know, like, how much do you think I need to put in the summary? Because, like, we went over a lot, and
yeah.
I mean.
Let's see what it says. It says, the last 15 minutes of the HOA meeting, the person who was in charge of composing the summary should share it with the group to make sure that all teammates agree with the work produced and can help revise it as appropriate. This collaboration may be done by any means chosen by the group, still using Hangouts, resorting to Google Docs, or exchanging emails, or whatever the group deems best. The final version of the summary should be a Word document. All participating group members' names should be on the document. Once the summary is approved by the group and ready for submission and the YouTube link to the recording is available, one group member should submit both of them. Please make sure only one submission is made per group. And it says to submit, click the open button below, paste the YouTube link in the comments box, and attach the summary as a Word document. There's no specification on how long or short or whatever. So
Okay.
if I were you, I'd probably just go on page 133. It says practices and principles and guidelines.
Yeah.
I would probably just use that as your point by point, because that's kind of basically what we went over.
Yeah, it is.
So I would just use that as your guide and just, you know, in whatever you want. And if you want me to add anything, if you want me to even take half of it, I don't mind.
Oh, I don't mind doing it. I guess I just want to
Okay.
make sure. I don't know, like, I just want to make sure, like, does she want me to, like, summarize the whole meeting? Because that to me would be more like an essay.
Yeah, it would be long.
So I'll just, like, touch on points I thought we really agreed on. I don't know. I'll send it to you and see if you like
I
it.
trust you. I think you'll do a fine job. If you do, just kind of, you don't have to go back and watch our hangout. I would just, you know, all the things that you have down on your list and then correlate it with basically what we went through was the table 6.1, the key processes in family resilience. Yeah, and just kind of go by those and just like I would just mention them. I wouldn't even go into detail as to what we discussed.
Yeah.
And then yeah, we should be good on that. And then if you email it to me, if I need to add anything, I'll add anything, but I doubt it. I'm sure you'll do fine.
Sounds good. And do you want me to submit it or do you want?
Yeah, because you're going to send the Google link, right?
Oh yeah, I have the link. Okay, yep.
Yeah. So when you send the YouTube link, if you'll submit the Word document at the same time, I think that's what it said to do.
Okay, yep. Yeah,
only have one person do it. So.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks. That's good.
It was good to meet with you, Melissa. And I don't know if we're going to have to meet again, but hopefully we can get it together and figure out what happened to Jessica. I feel really bad.
Yeah, I know. But hopefully she can find another group.
Yeah. So real quick before we end, tell me how you got it to a recording. Like, how did you do the invite?
I just Googled Google Live Chat, and then it kind of like took me to it, and then it's like it said start a live Google Chat, and then it had to like connect my YouTube. It's like verify your YouTube account, and then after that it just worked. So I just Googled how to do Google Live. Okay, so
I Googled it too, but I Googled HOA recording, and it took me to something completely different. So
yeah, just put Google Live Chat, I think.
Google Live Chat?
Yeah.
All right. I'll do that and I'll figure it out. And if we have to meet again, maybe I can get this together.
If not, I have it. So.
All right. Yeah, you got it down.
Yeah, I know. I'm pretty happy I figured it out.
Yeah. That's an accomplishment that I'm going to try it with my son as soon as he feels better. All right. Well, thank you, Melissa.
All right. Well, I'll get that typed up for us.
Okay. And if you want, just send it to my J&J Mommy at Earthlink. That's the one I check the most.
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay. Thanks.
All right. Yep. Bye.
Have a good day. Bye.